A woman with a fortune of $900 million sat on a sidewalk curb, unable to recall her own identity. 40-year-old Kevin Adams possessed only his name and mere hours to find food for both himself and his canine companion. Her jacket hung awkwardly across her frame like clothes meant for someone else's future. His pockets contained nothing but lint, a few bills, and unwavering hope. Traffic rushed by between them with complete indifference. Buddy, the disheveled, mixed-breed dog, leaned against Kevin's leg, his tail wagging despite being hungry. Two strangers with completely different fates found themselves stopped beneath a flickering streetlight, each having lost something precious beyond recovery. One had misplaced her memories, while the other had surrendered everything except devotion. For this moment, they were united. Kevin hadn't intended to pause his journey. Starvation demands constant movement, and shelters shut their doors regardless of when you show up. However, Buddy came to an abrupt halt, his ears perked as though hearing some silent signal only canines could detect that had somehow anchored the woman to the concrete. Kevin crouched several feet away, showing his open palms and speaking in gentle tones. "Excuse me, ma'am. Are you all right?" Her gaze would focus, then drift, like windows fogging over before becoming clear again. She touched the rim of her handbag, then her forehead, searching for words that refused to surface. The city continued flowing around them like water navigating around an obstacle. Buddy scooted nearer, resting his chin on her footwear, radiating understanding. "Could you share your name with me?" Kevin inquired. Her lips parted, remained empty, then closed once more. There was no alcohol smell, no slurred speech, no wild behavior, just a terrified blankness. Like illumination appearing in an unintended space, Kevin Gilali danced toward the street, weighing his options. Emergency medical services, law enforcement, or remaining unseen. Experience had taught him that each choice carried costs that people without resources couldn't manage. "My name is Kevin," he offered. "This is Buddy. We mean you no harm." She observed the dog's wagging tail, and something in her demeanor softened, as if compassion possessed a scent she could recognize even now. "Some water?" he suggested. Her small, appreciative nod was heartbreaking. He settled beside her beneath the streetlight's humming glow, unscrewed a worn bottle, and handed it over carefully. She drank as though memories might be floating on the liquid surface. "Where were you headed?" he asked. Her eyes wandered across shop windows as if one might summon her homeward. No response came. Buddy released a single bark, polite yet insistent. Kevin understood the message he always received: don't abandon her. He removed his threadbare jacket and placed it around her shoulders, despite the cold that immediately attacked him. "We'll sort this out," he declared, speaking mostly to Buddy, partially to himself, entirely to her trembling hands. Minutes passed, crowds dispersed, and the street's noise settled into a consistent whisper like distant ocean waves. Kevin contemplated the diner that occasionally offered him eggs, the library's heated sanctuary, the emergency room's clipboards demanding answers neither could provide. The woman slumped lower on the curb, exhaustion overtaking terror, her head tilting against the flickering glass of the shelter's advertisement panel. Kevin remained upright, a seasoned watchman, Buddy pressed against his boot, eyes scanning shadows. For someone with $3, time was expensive. Tonight, protecting someone invisible felt more valuable than pursuing a solitary meal. Morning light crept behind buildings, grey and pat. Iant. She awakened with a jolt, then relaxed upon seeing Buddy's absurd grin. "Good morning," Kevin said quietly. "Still unclear." She examined him, then nodded apologetically for something beyond her control. "All right," he exhaled, rising. "Breakfast first, then we'll think." He guided them to the diner, where the proprietor sometimes pretended not to recognize him on charitable days. "Anything remaining?" Kevin requested. The owner studied the woman, considered something private, then slid plates forward like coins. Eggs, toast, 2 coffees, a water bowl. "Sit," he grumbled. Buddy's tail struck the floor gratefully. She ate cautiously, as if food were an examination. Toast initially, then egg, followed by coffee sips that awakened something behind her eyes. "You're protected," Kevin assured her. "I mean for now. I mean with us." The owner feigned polishing a cup while monitoring their booth in the mirror. When Buddy emptied his water dish, the woman offered crumbs. The dog accepted them respectfully. A laugh, brief and startled, escaped her. It surprised them both. Kevin smiled broadly. "There you are," he said, as if a window had opened. The laughter didn't repeat, but its echo lingered, a promise that fear didn't control the entire day. Outside, morning accelerated. Deliveries clattered noisily. Buses released tired sighs. A siren traced a swift path across the sky. "Hospital?" Kevin suggested. She flinched, then shook her head, panic flickering. "Police?" She pressed her lips together, fingers gripping the purse tightly, the way people do when everything private threatens to spill out. "Okay," he said. "Library, then." Libraries had provided him warmth, electrical outlets, quiet corners, the privacy of printed pages. They also offered answers without judgment. He purchased a day-old muffin with $2 of his dollars, tucked the remaining one away securely, and led them toward the glass building that always provided heat and compassion. They located a table beside a weary plant with a view of unfolding sidewalks. Kevin requested the librarian's assistance without revealing the complete story. Pity was dangerous, but compassion was currency. A patient woman showed him large print picture books, neighborhood maps, a city directory, and a computer he could access without a library card. The woman browsed through a glossy architecture book, pausing at a mansion featuring white columns. Something in her breathing shifted, quicker, lighter. She tapped the photograph, whispered a syllable that slipped away like a fish. "Home?" Kevin ventured. She nodded once, eyes filling without overflowing. Kevin searched public records for estates, columns, foundations. The city presented hundreds of possibilities. He explored obituary pages, charity galas, board rosters, names with photographs that seemed to match her cheekbones and that careful mouth. Nothing clicked. Buddy slept beneath the table, twitching through dreams, occasionally sighing like a human. The woman traced the house photograph's edges the way lost people trace routes back to themselves. "We'll continue trying," Kevin promised. "One clue surpasses none." The librarian quietly placed a granola bar on the table and walked away quickly, pretending to reshelf courage. By midday, the library's atmosphere deepened. Students arrived, construction workers on break, toddlers clutching foam dinosaurs. The woman startled at a child's scream, then smiled despite herself. Kevin observed the gentleness and imagined who she'd been, decisive, kind, the type of person who read contracts slowly and holiday cards twice. He pulled up maps of the historic district. Columns, columns, columns. Architecture formed a choir here. Buddy awakened, stretched, and thumped his tail beneath the table, impatient. "You're right," Kevin murmured. "Fresh air." Outside, the sky had brightened into a possibility he didn't yet trust but wanted to. They strolled past boutiques and aged brick, allowing memory to hunt without pressure. The woman paused at a florist's window where lilies stood like careful punctuation. She exhaled, temples throbbing beneath her fingers, then continued onward. At a corner, a black SUV decelerated. The driver's gaze lingered, clinical, measuring, then moved away. Kevin's neck prickled. He shifted to position himself between the woman and the street. Instinct as old as the first night he learned sidewalks had rules. Buddy mirrored him like a shadow with pause. "Keep moving," Kevin said cheerfully, as if nothing had changed. Sometimes survival was a tone, not a strategy. Back at the bus stop, the woman's purse strap creaked. Leather, remembering better times. She opened it finally as if permission had arrived. Inside, a lipstick, a small notebook, a pen heavy enough to be expensive, and a key fob without branding. No wallet, no phone. The notebook contained only one line. "Lily." Kevin frowned at the florist's window behind them. "All right," he said. "Lily suggests a person who notices fragrance before price." He attempted a joke and failed. Buddy investigated the curb diligently, pretending to discover clues. The woman studied the fob as if it might speak her name aloud. Kevin took the notebook gently, turned it, held it against the bus shelter's plexiglass where light could illuminate letters more clearly. On the back cover, embossed so subtly you might miss it, a monogram curved. A.M.W. "Initials," Kevin murmured. We're getting closer. The woman covered her mouth as if shame for forgetting something so basic might consume her. Hey, he said softly. Brains flip circuit breakers when storms strike. That's not weakness, that's wiring. Buddy leaned his weight into her calf until she steadied. Somewhere down the block, the black SUV reappeared, idled, then turned away. Kevin memorized a den, Ted Rim. They returned to the library, initials like a compass. On the public computer, Kevin searched board members, donors, architecture with columns, and names with those letters. Articles flourished. Whitlow Foundation Awards, Citywide Literacy Grant. Photograph, a woman at a podium, lilies behind her, face familiar in shape, if not in memory. The caption read, Amelia M. Whitlow, CEO of Whitlow Holdings. Net worth estimates played roulette across websites. One number, 900 million, punched through him like Arctic wind. He looked at her, then the screen, then her again. She stared at the image as if it were a window into fog. Amelia, he tried gently. The name hovered between them like a bridge. Her breath caught, her fingers tightened around the chair. A flicker, then a flinch. Recognition and fear arriving together. He closed the tab halfway, blocking the number, leaving the face. People don't need fortunes to find themselves. They need familiarity. Buddy placed his paws on Kevin's knee, grounding the moment. We proceed slowly, Kevin said. A name is a beginning, not a prison. The librarian, sensing storm-tasting electricity, offered a private study room where walls could contain whatever came loose next. Inside the small room, the city's roar softened into carpeted hush. Kevin printed the article, slid it across carefully. Do you want me to read it, or do you want quiet? She pointed to the paper, then placed a hand on her heart. He nodded. He read only the gentlest parts. Books donated, scholarships granted, a literacy festival with lilies everywhere in the photographs. With each detail, her shoulders dropped a millimeter. Tears threatened, but didn't fall. You're good, he whispered. Meaning generous, meaning complicated, meaning human. Buddy sighed on the linoleum, satisfied that the pack was together and moving. What now? Kevin asked the air. Not expalm, acting an answer. The obvious choices, hospital, police, looked different when a name like that illuminated the room. Safety meant discretion. Predators hunted headlines. We get you somewhere quiet, he said finally. Somewhere no one asks questions with microphones. He thought of the only quiet he trusted. The public park, where benches faced trees, where an elderly groundskeeper allowed him to sit late if he promised to leave things cleaner than found. Follow me. She nodded, trusting the man with $3 and a dog because he had stayed when everyone else walked past. They took side streets, letting the SUV, real or imagined, lose their scent. At the park, sunlight dappled through leaves like blessings. The groundskeeper, Clarence, lifted a hand from his rake. Kev, he called, you bring company or trouble? Both, Kevin answered honestly. Clarence glanced at the woman, then Buddy, then the sky. Bench 3 has the best shade. I saw nothing. Kindness arranged itself like furniture. They sat. Birds argued politely. Buddy flopped dramatically, tongue out, happy to be somewhere grass-beat concrete. The woman closed her eyes, not in fear this time, but in rest, the kind that stitches torn hours together. Kevin counted his coins, 1 crumpled dollar, 2 quarters, 3 dimes, a nickel, enough for dog food if rationed like prayer. Buddy eats first, he told the universe, which already knew. He sent a message through the groundkeeper's kindness. Can you watch her 5 minutes? Clarence nodded, adjusting his rake into a scepter of silence. Kevin jogged to the corner store, bought a small can with a dent discount, and returned, breathless but triumphant. Buddy wolfed half, then astonishingly stepped back so Kevin could share crackers with the woman. A pack is a church with rules written in hunger and love. As afternoon leaned toward evening, the park's shadows lengthened into soft arrows, pointing homeward for people who had one. Kevin knew the library would close, shelters would fill, and the city would grow teeth again after dew. Dark. He needed a plan before the street turned feral. We have 2 options, he said quietly. We go to a hospital that treats people kindly, or we try to reach someone trustworthy from your world without lighting it on fire. She touched the initials on the notebook, then pointed at the photo again. Family? He asked. The word made her flinch deeply. Okay, he soothed. Not family, someone else. Often the right ally wasn't blood, but decency with keys. He scanned the articles line by line, then the Foundation's public contact page, names listed with discretion. One stood out, Harriet Cole, Executive Director. In her photo, age and competence made a reassuring team. If anyone can help without noise, it's the woman who builds the quiet behind your generosity, he said. The woman, Amelia maybe, nodded cautiously. Kevin borrowed Clarence's flip phone, dialed the office number, and left a message in the softest voice he owned. I found someone important. Please call back soon. Dusk threaded gold through trees as they waited. Buddy pressed against Amelia's sneakers like a heater with a heartbeat. Kevin rehearsed what he'd say if men in suits arrived, if microphones appeared, if the past came running faster than courage. The phone buzzed. He jumped. This is Harriet, a calm voice said. He explained carefully, never saying the curb, never saying 900 million, saying only confused, safe with me, please come alone. Silence. Then, where? He gave directions that only people who paid attention would understand. 20 minutes, she said. He exhaled like he'd been underwater all day. 20 minutes in fear years feels like forever. Kevin counted dog breaths, traced cracks in the path, memorized birds he'd never name. When a modest sedan pulled up, a woman stepped out who matched the photograph exactly. Sensible shoes, eyes that could hold other people's panic without drowning. She approached slowly, palms open, as if greeting a skittish foal. Amelia, she murmured. The woman on the bench didn't answer but didn't recoil. Harriet crouched, tears shining, discipline holding. We've been looking everywhere, she whispered. You're safe now. Kevin watched relief and ache wrestling in his ribs. Buddy wagged, welcoming another to the pack. Harriet turned to Kevin. Thank you, she said, not as charity, but as contract. I'll take her to a physician we trust and keep her out of sight. May I contact you tomorrow? Kevin nodded, surprised by the invitation back into a life he didn't share. One more thing, he said, swallowing pride. If you can, see that she eats, and the dog eats too. Harriet smiled through wet eyes. Both, I promise. She helped Amelia to the car. The woman looked back once, as if to memorize the man and dog who'd stood guard when her name went missing. Then they were gone. Harriet helped Amelia into the car, and Kevin stood in the park, his jacket too thin for the night chill, but his resolve steady. Buddy pressed against his leg, sensing the weight of what had just happened. For the first time in years, Kevin felt that his existence mattered, not because of money or possessions, but because he had been present when no one else was. Yet even as the taillights disappeared into the distance, he wondered if their paths would ever cross again, or if he had simply been a nameless guardian in her forgotten night. That evening, Kevin and Buddy wandered the streets until they found an alley behind a bakery, where the air still carried warmth from the ovens. The owner had long since left, but Kevin knew from experience that the bins held bread too stale for customers, but still good enough for survival. He broke a loaf in half, feeding Buddy first, then chewing on the hard crusts himself. His stomach complained, but he felt a strange fullness that bread alone couldn't explain. The image of Amelia's eyes, confused yet grateful, stayed with him, a spark in the fog of his wandering life. Days passed. Kevin returned to his routine, securing meals, finding dry spots, guarding Buddy from dangers both seen and unseen. Yet something had shifted. People who once blended into the blur of the city now carried faces he studied carefully. What if they too were missing something they couldn't name? One afternoon, as Buddy chased pigeons near the library steps, Kevin noticed the sedan again. Harriet stepped out, her gaze sweeping the street until it found him. "Kevin," she called gently. He straightened, unsure if this was good news or a storm arriving. Buddy barked once, tail wagging cautiously. Harriet approached with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. She remembers more, pieces of her life, enough to know who she can trust. And she asked for you. Kevin blinked, stunned. Me? Harriet nodded. She said there was a man who stayed when the world kept walking. She wants to see him again. The words sank into Kevin like water into parched soil. He had been forgotten by so many, employers, neighbors, even family. But Amelia remembered. For Buddy, it was simpler. He wagged his tail furiously, as if he had known all along this moment would return. Kevin followed Harriet to a quiet house on the edge of the city. The building wasn't grand like the mansion in the article, but it was private, hidden, a place where Amelia could recover away from curious eyes. When Kevin entered, Buddy trotting ahead, Amelia sat near the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket that looked too fine for the humble room. Her eyes lifted and recognition sparked. "Kevin," she whispered, as if naming him anchored her. Buddy bounded over, resting his head on her lap. She laughed, a sound fragile but real, and stroked his fur. "I remember kindness," she said. They spoke softly for hours. Amelia confessed fragments. Her foundation, work, her love for lilies, the unbearable pressure of wealth. Kevin shared scraps of his life, not in self-pity, but honestly. He told her about Buddy, how the dog had kept him alive on nights when despair whispered too loudly. Amelia listened as if every word was worth storing. For the first time, Kevin's story wasn't brushed aside as the ramblings of a homeless man, but honored as survival, as proof of resilience. When silence came, it wasn't heavy. It was the peace of two people no longer entirely alone. Over the following weeks, Kevin visited often. Harriet arranged it discreetly, aware that Amelia's recovery depended not just on doctors, but on human connection. Kevin would bring small gifts, smooth stones from the park, a sketch he had made on scrap paper, even half of a sandwich he had saved. Amelia treasured each one as if it were gold. She in turn shared books, letting him read aloud while she closed her eyes, her memory slowly stitching itself back together. Buddy became the bridge between them, curling at their feet, a reminder that loyalty needed no explanation. But not everyone was pleased with Amelia's recovery. Rumors spread in the business world that she had vanished, leaving Whitlow Holdings vulnerable. Associates whispered, opportunists circled, and one evening, Harriet warned Kevin to be careful. "If they discover where she is, they'll use her condition against her," Harriet said grimly. Kevin frowned. "Then I'll stay nearby. Watch quietly. Buddy and I know how to go unseen." Harriet studied him, recognizing in his weary eyes the determination of a man who had lost much but refused to lose what little he had left. "She trusts you," Harriet said. "So do I." That trust was tested sooner than expected. One rainy night, Kevin noticed a black SUV idling across from the house, its headlights cutting briefly through the mist before switching off. Buddy growled low, hackles raised. Kevin's instincts sharpened. He had seen that same vehicle before. Without hesitation, he positioned himself near the fence, blending into shadows. Hours dragged, the rain soaking his jacket, but he didn't move. When at last a man stepped from the SUV, phone pressed to his ear, Kevin whistled softly. Buddy barked a warning sharp enough to scatter the intruder back inside the vehicle. The SUV fled. The next morning, Amelia found Kevin asleep on the porch, Buddy curled against him. His clothes were drenched, but his grip on Buddy's collar was firm, even in sleep. "You stayed," Amelia said softly when he woke. Kevin rubbed his eyes, embarrassed. Didn't seem right to leave. Her hand brushed his sleeve gently. "You protect me like no one else has." Kevin shrugged, unused to praise. "You'd do the same if our places were switched." She studied him, tears brimming. "I'm not sure I would have known how, but you chose to stay when you had nothing to gain." The bond deepened. What began as gratitude grew into companionship, and from companionship into something neither dared name. Kevin still walked the city streets by day, but now he carried purpose, returning each evening to Amelia and Buddy. He fixed small things around the house, squeaky hinges, loose steps, skills learned from a life of making do. Amelia laughed more often, her memory strengthening with each shared moment. For Kevin, laughter was the rarest gift. proof that even lives cracked open by loss could hold music again. For Buddy, it was simple. His pack had grown, and he was content. As winter crept in, Harriet raised a question neither had voiced. What happens when the world notices Amelia Whitlow again? When reporters, investors, and enemies come knocking? Kevin fell silent, staring at the fireplace. Amelia reached for his hand. "Then I want them to see the truth," she said firmly, "that I wasn't saved by wealth or power or headlines. I was saved by a man with $3 and a loyal dog, and I won't hide that story." Kevin squeezed her hand gently, afraid and proud all at once. Buddy wagged his tail, as if sealing the vow. The world eventually did notice. Photographers snapped blurry images, articles speculated, and soon Amelia stood before cameras, her memory restored enough to reclaim her life. But she didn't stand alone. At her side, not behind her, was Kevin and Buddy, tail wagging like a banner of loyalty. Amelia spoke calmly, announcing her return to the Foundation's work, but she also told the story of a night on the curb, a dog's bark, and a man who stayed. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, not expecting such honesty. Yet the truth settled deep, undeniable. Wealth meant nothing without compassion. When the conference ended, Kevin tried to slip away, uncomfortable with attention, but Amelia stopped him, her hand firm on his arm. "You belong here," she whispered. "With us." Harriet smiled knowingly, and Buddy barked once, as if seconding the motion. For Kevin, the journey from $3 crumpled to this moment was almost too much to grasp. But as Amelia leaned closer, her eyes steady, he understood. He had never been invisible, not to her, not to Buddy, and not anymore to himself.